brothers and sisters. Let us pause and listen to a question so sharp, so simple, it cuts through the noise of centuries. If we are as poor as they say, then why won't they leave? These words, spoken beneath the burning sun of Ouagadougou on the 25th of September in the year 2025, struck the air like a bell tolling in the midnight hour. They were not statistics. They were not theories. They were the cry of a nation long called poor, yet never abandoned by those who profit from her soil. And to every elder listening today, to every grandmother who remembers the marches, to every grandfather who remembers the sermons that carried our people through dark nights, do you hear the echo? Do you hear the same language of ranking, of labeling, of diminishing? It is not new. It has been sung over our lives before. But here stands a young captain, daring to ask the forbidden question. And here we are, ready to journey together through the evidence, through the contradictions, through the hope rising from Africa's heart. If this question stirs your memory and your spirit, hit subscribe and ring that bell, because together we will lift the veil and let the truth shine. Brothers and sisters, imagine it with me. The morning sun over Ouagadougou, the red earth shimmering, the flags of a proud nation fluttering in the wind. The air was thick with expectation, for the people knew their young leader was about to speak. They pressed forward into the square, men and women, the old and the young, carrying not just banners but centuries of longing on their shoulders. And then, from the podium, in the plain uniform of a soldier, with a beret pulled low, stood the captain, Ibrahim Traoré. Not a politician polished in foreign salons, not a man chasing handshakes in marble corridors, but a son of the soil, born from the dust of the Sahel, hardened by its struggles, carrying the fire of its people in his chest. His words came not with fancy rhetoric, but with the weight of truth. He looked out over the crowd and over the world and declared, "We are ranked among the last. If we are as poor as they say, why don't they want to leave when the time has come?" Ah, my friends, did you hear it? Not just a question, but a revelation. Because this is the same question many of us have asked in our own lives. When they told our neighborhoods they were worthless, why did investors still come for the land? When they said our schools could never thrive, why did they fight to control their boards? When they called our people poor, why did they covet the very culture they dismissed? History has a way of repeating itself in different tongues, and in that moment, on the 24th day of September, 2025, the captain spoke not only for Burkina Faso, but for every community ever labeled last, while the powerful still clung to its riches. Now let us pause, for I must paint the contrast more clearly. The United Nations tells us Burkina Faso stands near the bottom of the Human Development Index, 184th out of 191. The World Bank records a GDP per capita of just $893 a year. The newspapers call it a failed state, a forgotten land, a place fit only for aid and pity. And yet, what do we find in this so-called desert of despair? We find embassies larger than city blocks. We find soldiers from foreign lands who refuse to pack up and go home. We find mining corporations with machines that cut into the belly of the earth day and night. We find gold, yes, gold, flowing out by the billions each year. Does that sound like a land they truly believe is poor? Or does it sound like a land they cannot bear to let go? In Ouagadougou, that day, as the Burkina Faso leader lifted his voice, He exposed the contradiction so sharp it makes the world tremble. For poverty, brothers and sisters, is not simply about numbers on a chart. It is about power, about control, about who decides what story gets told. The young revolutionary did not recite the figures to flatter outsiders. He did not appeal for sympathy. No, he turned the question back on those who pretend to measure, those who claim to rank, those who brand nations as beggars, while they themselves refuse to depart. And in that square, something holy stirred. The people cried out not with despair, but with pride. They saw in their captain a reflection of their own dignity, their own worth, their own inheritance long denied. Can you feel it? I know my elders watching tonight can, because you too remember the moment when a single sentence, "I am a man, we shall overcome, I have a dream," broke through centuries of chains. Traoré's question belongs to that same lineage of truth. It is simple, it is undeniable, and it cannot be unspoken. But what makes this moment greater still is that the world was listening. Reporters from Paris, from London, from Washington, scribbling in their pads, knowing full well that one short line had undone volumes of their own narrative. The Sahel Alliance stood by, nodding, as if to say, "Here speaks not only for Burkina Faso, but for us all." And I tell you, brothers and sisters, that kind of truth cannot be caged. Once the words have flown, they perch on every ear, they echo in every hall, they stir in every conscience that still has breath. Yet we must ask, what comes next? For a question is powerful, but its power lies in how the world responds. And already, even as the crowd in Ouagadougou roared with hope, forces beyond those borders were stirring, calculating, sharpening their replies. They say words are cheap, but when a single question makes empires tremble, you know you are no longer dealing with words alone. Stay with me, for in the next part, we shall see how the powers of this world reacted, with fear, with fury, and with a desperate grasp to hold on. Brothers and sisters, let us step into the whirlwind that followed. For when truth is spoken, it never falls silent. It shakes, it unsettles, it calls forth reactions, some in joy, others in anger, and many in fear. The captain's question rang out, "If we are as poor as they say, why won't they leave?" And in that instant, those who profit from Africa's story of poverty began to show their hands. From Paris came the headlines, "Burkina Faso slips deeper into dictatorship." From London, the voices of think tanks declaring authoritarian consolidation in the Sahel. From Washington, stern words about human rights and security risks. Yet behind the podiums, behind the headlines, behind the lectures, what do we find? Private meetings requested, quiet approaches made. Both parties in the United States Congress, Republican and Democrat alike, whispering requests for conversations with the Burkinabe delegation at the United Nations. Do you see it? Public condemnation, private curiosity, harsh words on the record, handshakes behind closed doors, because even they know when a young revolutionary turns away from dependency and begins to chart a new course, the world must pay attention. Now, let us widen the frame. In the same weeks, the World Bank, that great lender of conditions and strings, returned to Ouagadougou, not with demands, but with respect. After years of insisting on austerity and control, they came offering technical cooperation with no political leash. For the first time, a voice in Africa had stood firm and said, "We will not borrow on your terms," and the institution bent instead of breaking the man who dared to resist. Brothers and sisters, is this not the mark of true sovereignty? When those who once dictated must now negotiate? When the tables begin to turn, and the so-called weak become the ones who set the terms. And yet, while institutions shifted, media machines roared louder. BBC, CNN, France 24. All sang in chorus, autocrat, dictator, threat to democracy. Think tanks and universities piled on, writing reports, grading governance, condemning a man they could not control. The louder the African crowds cheered, the harsher the Western voices became. But listen carefully. When people shout dictator, yet line up for meetings, when they call a leader dangerous, yet nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize, when their television screens sneer, yet their governments send envoys. What do we call this? Hypocrisy. Contradiction. The old game exposed, and in this crucible of claims and interests, the name Traore becomes a question mark carved into stone. For every time they try to reduce him to a label, his question echoes back at them, louder than before. Picture it. 5,000 foreign troops once stationed on Burkina soil, now forced to leave. Mining companies scrambling to rewrite contracts as the Burkinabe leader nationalizes the wealth of his own land. And yet, headlines still speak of poverty. Brothers and sisters, do you not see the theater? A nation that produces over 60 tons of gold each year called destitute. A people who feed themselves with fertile land, described as helpless. It is here that the contradiction sharpens into a blade. Aid flows into the country at $500 million a year, while $8 billion flows out in resource extraction. 90% of profits wired to foreign accounts, while only scraps remain for local schools, clinics, and roads. And then they turn and declare, "This country cannot govern itself." My friends, do you not recognize the same pattern sung over our own communities, when our labor was harvested, our music taken, our culture commodified, while we were told we had nothing to give? What they cannot control, they condemn. What they cannot own, they diminish. But here in the Sahel, in the heart of Africa, a young voice refuses to be diminished, and his question has broken through the smoke and mirrors. If the land is truly poor, why does the world fight so hard to stay? The answer, brothers and sisters, is not yet fully spoken. It lies in the flow of wealth, in the contracts signed in the dark, in the statistics buried deep within financial ledgers. It lies in the contrast between what is said and what is done. They claim poverty, yet they strip wealth. They offer aid, yet they take billions. Stay with me now, for in the next part we will follow the money, and the truth hidden in the soil of Burkina Faso will rise before our eyes. Brothers and sisters, let us follow the money. Let us trace the river that flows unseen, carrying away the lifeblood of a nation. For in Burkina Faso they say aid arrives, $500 million each year, dressed in the language of generosity. But look again, and you will see a tide moving in the opposite direction. $8 billion worth of gold and minerals flowing out every 12 months to foreign banks, foreign companies, foreign shareholders. It is as if a man places one coin in your hand, while his other hand reaches into your pocket and takes 20. Then he pats you on the back and calls you poor. Do you see the cruelty in that arithmetic? Do you feel the sting of that insult? The aid comes with conditions, laws to be changed, markets to be opened, leaders to be molded in foreign image. The extraction comes with consequences, rivers polluted, villages displaced, children watching trucks rumble past their schools carrying wealth they will never touch. And still, the narrative repeats. This land is too weak to stand. These people are too poor to decide. But brothers and sisters, the truth is breaking through the cracks. For when the captain took hold of his nation's mines, revenues tripled. When the Burkinabe leader invested those revenues into hospitals, roads, and schools, the people saw change not in reports, but in bricks and mortar. When the young revolutionary expanded food security, planting cassava across 200,000 hectares, families ate bread baked from their own soil, not charity handed from abroad. This is what I call the sovereignty dividend. It is the fruit born when a people dare to stand on their own feet. It is the harvest reaped when hands once tied are loosed to labor freely. And so the world has had to adjust. The World Bank, once the master of conditions, returned with respect. Regional neighbors, once skeptical, joined in alliance, and voices across the continent began to whisper, "If Burkina Faso can do it, why not us?" Mark it well, my friends. The name Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso, no longer reads like a headline. It sounds like a testimony, a roadmap etched in sweat and courage. But let us not be naive. Every step toward sovereignty has consequences. The media roars louder, sanctions threaten, hidden hands stir unrest. For when you touch the pocketbooks of the powerful, you invite their anger. And yet, when has true freedom ever come without a struggle? To my elders listening now, remember the sit-ins, the marches, the sermons under hot sun. Did freedom come cheaply then? No. It came with sacrifice, with bruises, with jail cells, with songs sung in midnight churches. And yet it came. It always comes when a people refuse to bow. So too, in Burkina Faso, the roads being built, the hospitals rising, the schools opening, these are not gifts from foreign donors. They are wages earned, long denied, finally returned to the rightful owners. They are proof that when the chains of dependency are broken, nations rise like men and women standing tall. But now comes the question for us, brothers and sisters. For it is not enough to witness. We must also discern. Tell me, what do you believe keeps the West holding on so tightly? Is it the resources? Is it the location? Or is it the story they tell about us? Leave your answer in the comments, and let us see which truth rises to the top. We have followed the money, we have seen the fruit, but the struggle is not only in minds and markets. It is also in the realm of perception, in the headlines, in the reports, in the way America and the world respond. In the next part, we turn to the battlefield of narratives and ask, whose voice will the world believe? Brothers and sisters, let us widen our gaze now. From Ouagadougou to Washington, from the Sahel Alliance to the streets of Harlem. For the struggle of narratives is never local. It is global. In America, the headlines tell one story. They call the captain an autocrat. They frame the young revolutionary as a danger to democracy. Reports circulate from think tanks, from universities, from human rights watchdogs, each carrying the same refrain. Authoritarian consolidation, threats to liberty, instability in the Sahel. And yet, at the very same time, doors in Washington quietly open. Meetings are requested. Both Republicans and Democrats lean in close, wanting to hear what this Burkinabe leader has to say. Public condemnation, private engagement. Is that not a contradiction you recognize, my friends? Because some of you still remember the days when our own leaders here in America were called agitators, troublemakers, radicals. They were mocked in newspapers, condemned in pulpits, studied by academics as if they were threats to society. And yet, behind the scenes, power could not ignore them. For a people awakened cannot be dismissed, no matter what labels are pinned upon them. The same is happening now. Across Africa, youth rise in song, in dance, in digital chorus, declaring pride in their sovereignty. Across the diaspora, voices proclaim that Africa is not poor. It is rich in resources, rich in spirit, rich in hope. Meanwhile, Western media scrambles, spinning narratives to contain a truth that refuses to be caged. Do you see the battle, brothers and sisters? It is not fought with bullets, but with headlines, not with chains, but with statistics, not with armies, but with algorithms. It is a struggle over whose story will be believed, whose truth will be remembered, whose voice will carry. And in this battlefield of perception, the captain stands not alone. For every elder who remembers being misrepresented in the evening news, for every grandchild who sees biased images on their phone today, we know the pattern. We recognize the hand behind the curtain, so the question rises. When the world hears two voices, one calling him dictator, the other calling him deliverer, which will history believe? And this leads us to the most urgent matter of all, the road ahead. For beyond the noise of headlines and the clash of narratives, there remains the question, what path shall Africa, and all of us who care for her, walk next? Brothers and sisters, we have heard the cry, we have seen the contradiction, we have traced the money, and we have weighed the narratives. Now the question stands before us plain. What road shall we walk? For Africa, and for all of us who care for her destiny, the path ahead is not a mystery. It is a choice. And like every true choice, it demands courage. Let me name the pillars of that road. First, transparency. The wealth of the soil must no longer be hidden in foreign contracts, signed in secret chambers. The light must shine so that every son and daughter of the land knows what has been taken and what is owed. Second, local value. It is not enough to dig the gold and watch it vanish overseas. The refining, the processing, the making of wealth must be done on African soil, by African hands, for African futures. Third, regional unity. Alone, a single nation can be cornered. But together, the Sahel Alliance and beyond can form a shield, economic, political, spiritual, that no foreign power can easily pierce. Fourth, investment in the essentials. Water, land, education. These are the wells from which all life flows. A nation may have gold, but without these, it cannot feed its children nor build its tomorrow. Fifth, media sovereignty. For the battle of perception is as fierce as the battle for minds. Africans must tell their own stories in their own tongues, on their own platforms, so that no outside hand controls the narrative of their worth. Brothers and sisters, this is the road before us, and it is not only a road for Africa, it is a road for us, here and now. For elders in our community who remember when our own voices were silenced, you are the keepers of the flame. You know how to remind the young that freedom requires both memory and vigilance. For the youth watching, inspired by the young revolutionary, you are the hands to build, the voices to spread, the feet to march when the time calls. So let us covenant together, across oceans, across generations, across the divides of language and culture, to guard this road, to walk it, to teach it, to live it. But now, brothers and sisters, we must return to where it all began, the question. For it is in the question that the power lies, and in the final word of this message we will answer it together, with hope, with resolve, and with a vision of a continent rising. Brothers and sisters, we have walked a long road together. From the square in Ouagadougou, where a young captain dared to ask the forbidden question, to the mines and markets, to the corridors of power and the headlines of the world, we have seen the truth revealed. Africa is not poor. Africa has been plundered. Africa has been misnamed, mislabeled, misrepresented. But when the people stand, when sovereignty is reclaimed, when the resources of the land are held with steady hands, then hope blooms where despair once reigned. I tell you, elders, picture it. A Burkina Faso where hospitals shine with new light, where schools echo with the laughter of children, where factories hum with the sound of progress. Picture a Sahel where water flows in irrigated fields, where farmers feed not only their own, but their neighbors. Picture a continent rising, not in begging, but in building. And hear this: when history writes its next chapter, the name Traore will not be whispered in footnotes. It will be carved in bold, alongside those who dared to stand when others knelt. The legacy of Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso, will not be one of submission, but of sovereignty. But the question remains, and it comes to you now. What step do you believe must be taken first? Transparency in contracts, investment in education, or the unity of the region? Write your answer in the comments, for your voice matters in this great conversation. And as you answer, let us make a covenant together, not to leave this truth in silence, but to carry it to our families, to our communities, to our churches, to our gatherings. For the truth is a seed, and it grows only when it is sown. Say the name again, brothers and sisters. Say Traore, and let it echo across generations. If you believe in the power of sovereignty, if you believe in the right to tell our own story, then hit subscribe and ring the bell, not just for news, but for fellowship, for strength, for the building of a community of truth. Share this message with one young voice and one elder in your family. Let 2 generations rise together. The time of silence is over. The question has been asked. And the answer, brothers and sisters, is this: Africa is not poor. Africa is rich. Rich in land, rich in spirit, rich in people. The world may deny it, but we will declare it until the walls of falsehood fall.